Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we'll be talking about really the only box office champion as far as studios are concerned of the year 2021. Yesterday, I did my box office breakdown of all of the major losers of 2021, of which at the top were Warner Brothers and Disney, respectfully. This video, however, will focus on really the only studio that was actually able to make its money back, and in a pretty amazing way to boot, and it's still making money because of the incredible release of Spider-Man No Way Home. Before going into this video, breaking things down a little bit further though, please make sure that you smash that like button, let out that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So yesterday, as I said, I focused specifically on all of the box office losers, and pretty much every studio came away in 2021 as a box office loser, really save one. And it is, of course, Sony. Sony saw the best box office performance of this year, and a lot of it is because, of course, of Spider-Man No Way Home. But even without Spider-Man No Way Home, they actually still would have been in the black. It's a kind of incredible feat of them to be able to do so, putting out, again, not a large amount of films like some studios like Warner Brothers did, or even to the extent Disney, but kind of being somewhat comparable to Disney. What we see here, that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 releases that came directly out of Sony this year, whereas Disney had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So only a couple of more movies really in comparison to Disney, and Disney seeing, again, $400 million in losses without Spider-Man, with Spider-Man as of the recording of this video, which remember is on the 23rd of December, so some of these numbers are definitely going to have changed at this point. Make sure you go to ombreviews.com where you can find up-to-date numbers there, because even though I will be spending obviously time with family, I will have a moment or two to at least be able to update these numbers from a phone or from a computer, even though if I'm not able to do a dedicated video on the actual topic. So as you can see from all of this, it is, again, pretty impressive for Sony to be able to have made as much money as it did. But here is the key. It's not that they released 2 less films than Disney. It's that they spent so much less money on the films that they did put out. Take, for instance, films like Resident Evil, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Venom 2, Escape Room, Peter Rabbit 2. They spent very little money on these movies in comparison to almost every Disney film. Every Disney film being released has almost as a standard $100 million minimum cost. So that is one of the biggest reasons why Disney as a studio lost so much money at the box office this year, whereas with Sony, they were able to, again, spend money when they needed to spend it, but were able to make that money back relatively easily. As I said, when you actually look at their box office totals without Spider-Man, they were able to make $113.7 million in net profits. And that's after having spent $427.5 million as far as overall costs with marketing, and taking in a total of $902 million at the worldwide box office. And so it might not have the largest box office total for the year, but that doesn't really matter, because what matters in the business of movies is making your money back, and making enough money back to be able to justify funding future projects and putting more money in to said future projects. And keep in mind as well that some of these films are still out. Ghostbusters Afterlife, I honestly think, has a chance of being able to reach a break-even point over at some point throughout the holiday season. We'll, of course, have to wait and see on that and whether it can do that officially, but it's at such a small financial loss at this point in time that it's easily justifiable for someone to say that it'll make that money back up in their 4K and Blu-ray sales. There's already 4K and Blu-ray sales available for that movie, and I know a lot of people who really enjoy the film who are already going out to get it. There's also a massive set of all 3, and that's right, you heard me, all 3 Ghostbusters films that have been released in history, and that one also is getting a lot of attention and cost a pretty fair amount of money to boot. But not only do you have the films on their own without Spider-Man being able to make this money, but when you take into account that as of the recording of this video, I suspect that the films probably crossed $1 billion by the time this video is going live. But at this point, it had made $779 million in total. The film's budget was $200 million. Remember, Sony and Disney did split the cost here a little bit. Again, Disney was able to fund about 25% of the money, rather 25% of the overall cost, whereas Sony put up 75%, meaning that Sony gets 75% of the return. So that means Sony in total put around $225 million towards Spider-Man No Way Home. And as so far as of this video, based on the 779, after you take into account how much the film cost and how much studios tend to get by the end of their run, right, the 60% number that I always talk about, you're looking at Sony's cut being around $125.5 million. Their total box office with Spider-Man then was over $1 billion, and I'm imagining that it's going to be a lot higher than this, as I suspect Spider-Man will get close to $1.5 to $2 billion by the end of its run. But with these adjusted numbers, that means that their overall total for the year right now is $239.2 million in net gain, net profit. And this is probably going to go up to close to $400-500 million. And so it's kind of incredible when you look to a studio like Sony, which is able to get $500+ million in net gain, net profit, and then compare that to the biggest losers of this year, which is Warner Brothers' $888 million, $888 million loss, or Disney's over $400 million loss before taking into account Spider-Man No Way Home. So all of these things are so incredibly important, but the fact that you're going to see this huge and almost basically this $1 billion difference between the top film studio of the year and the bottom film studio of the year, I think is still pretty incredible. But with all of that being said, are you surprised? Sony is the box office winner of the year. We'll obviously be going into individual films as far as the top 5, top 10 biggest losers of the year and the biggest winners of the year, going based on actual gains and losses, right? Sometimes there's still people in the comment section who love to say, this film wasn't a failure. It's one of the top grossing films of the year. Yes, before you subtract the amount of money that it cost to make the film and then remind yourself the studio only gets a certain amount back and then realize, oh, it was actually a net loss, right? Some people only focus on total box office, but again, this $902 million does not mean a damn thing, because even at $902 million, guess what? They only got $113.7 million back on that money because of how much they spent and also how much money they get back from this, right? How much they have to split with theaters and some other foreign countries as well. Again, roughly around 60% is the return on investment that studios obviously tend to get. And so even with a massive hit like Spider-Man, you're still only looking at right now is $239.2 million on top of the $113 million after they've already made $779 million. So all of this is to say that there will be, again, a breakdown into the biggest losers and the biggest winners of the year. But what are your thoughts? Are you surprised that this is going to happen? Are you surprised, rather, that this is the biggest winning studio of the year? I know I personally am not, because I've been following this stuff all year. And don't worry, I will also be doing a pandemic version of these videos as well, as I plan to take into account all films released from the time of the pandemic. So sometime around end of February, beginning of March is when we started to see some impacts on the box office at that point. So I'm going to be updating some of these charts with including those movies. So start to think about, speculate what you think will end up being the biggest financial loss and biggest loser with those numbers added in. And also, I will try and find what numbers I can as far as revenue from Disney Plus or revenue from HBO Max. Anyway, thank you all very much for your love and your attention. Please make sure you smash the like button, live that fire button. Hope you all had a wonderful Christmas yesterday. And again, you're amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my December Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members. Animation commentator Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Dolores Ed, Dion, Father Christopher Miller, Hail to You Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Hannibal Grimm, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyles 79, Laura, The Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson ×4, Mitch Dunaway, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody, Mondo Spieler, On to June, Orange Chat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Ullen, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, and Tina Bojan, and of course, the Empress of the Universe, Tina B. Thank you very much for being my Patreon members. And for my Subscribe Star members, UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stan 4, John B., Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank you very much for supporting me on Subscribestar. And to my 4 members over on Locals.com, Kara Tharp, UAB Mad Dog, once again, Mike Jackson, Bifford a Hobbit, and Robert Barnes. Thank you for supporting me on Locals, and if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, check out the top link in the video description below. It's called Willow, or w.lo, Willow link. It'll bring you to all of my social media platforms and also to all of the various other locations that you can support the channel. You can get access to things like giveaways, where I do giveaways of 4K films, 4K steelbooks, digital codes, all kinds of stuff every single month. Also, there's a level where you get access to all of that, plus an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where you also get to ask questions that we will answer on every episode of the podcast. And at the final level, you also have the ability, the Chosen of Valhalla level, you have the ability to have all of that, plus in your first month, get a free t-shirt of your choice, any color, sent anywhere in the world, and also you get to be featured once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream featured on the main channel. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description. You're all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.